All right, let's talk about something really fascinating in the Japanese language. We're going to crack open how verbs work, because they don't just tell you when something happened, they tell you how it happened. And in doing that, they reveal this hidden dimension of time that you've probably never even thought about. So let's just dive right in.
So let's start with a really basic question. When you think about grammar and time, what comes to mind? Past, present, future, right? I walked, I walk, I will walk. Seems pretty simple. But what if I told you there's a whole other layer to it? A completely different way of looking at an action that has nothing to do with where it falls on a timeline.
And that brings us to these two really important ideas, tense and aspect. Now, think of it this way. Tense is the easy part. It just tells you when something happens, past, present, future. Simple. But aspect is where things get really interesting. It describes the action itself. Is it happening right now? Is it finished? Is it happening over and over again? So if tense tells you when a photograph was taken, aspect is all about what's actually happening inside that photo. Okay, so to really get aspect in Japanese, we need to zone in on one of the most common and honestly one of the most confusing pieces of grammar for learners. It's a verb form called te-iru, and trust me, it's going to be our key to unlocking this whole mystery.
So, what is this te-iru form anyway? Well, you take what's called the te form of a verb, and you just add iru, which means to be. And usually, this gives you a sense that something is ongoing. It's the difference between something happening versus something that happened. But, and this is a big but, it is not always that simple.
Let's look at our first clue. Taro wa ima tegami o kaiteiru. This translates perfectly to Taro is writing a letter right now. The verb kaku, to write, becomes kaiteiru, and it clearly means the action is in progress. Okay, makes sense. This is exactly what we'd expect, no surprises here. But now, look at this sentence. Sono sakana wa shindeiru. The verb here is shinu, which means to die. Now, if we follow the same logic from before, this should mean the fish is dying. But it doesn't. Not at all. It means the fish is dead. So here, it's describing a finished state, not an action that's happening now.
So here's our puzzle. We have the exact same piece of grammar, te-iru, but in one sentence it means an action is in progress, and in the other it means the action is totally done and we're just looking at the result. How is that possible? What is the secret rule here that decides the meaning?
Well, the answer, and this is so clever, isn't actually in the te-iru grammar itself. The secret is all about the verb it's attached to. You see, it turns out that in Japanese, not all verbs are created equal. They each have a kind of secret identity that completely changes how they play with time. And here they are, our three main suspects. Linguists basically sort Japanese verbs into these three groups. You've got stative verbs, which just describe a state. You've got durative verbs for actions that take some time. And then you have punctual verbs for actions that happen in a split second. Getting these three categories is the key to solving our entire puzzle. Okay, you ready? Let's put all the pieces together and crack this code. We're going to look at how te-iru works with each of these verb types, and you're going to see the logic just fall right into place. It's pretty cool. First up, the easy ones, stative verbs. These just describe a state of being, like aru, to exist. Since they're already describing a state, they don't really have a beginning, middle, or end, so they basically don't even use the te-iru form. Easy enough? Case closed on that one. Now for our second suspect, durative verbs. Remember our first example, to write? That is a classic durative verb. It's an action that takes time, right? You can be at the beginning of writing, in the middle of it, at the end. It has duration. And this gives us our first major rule. When you attach te-iru to a durative verb, it's like you're zooming in on the middle of that action. So kaku, to write, becomes kaiteiru, is writing. Hashiru, to run, becomes hashitteiru, is running. It means the action is happening right now. Boom. First half of the puzzle is solved. And now for the final piece of the puzzle. Punctual verbs. These are actions that happen in a flash, in just an instant, like a light bulb turning on or something breaking. Or, like in our mystery sentence, the verb shinu, to die. The event itself is instantaneous. So here's the brilliant part. You can't be in the middle of an instant action, right? It doesn't have a middle, so the grammar does something incredibly logical. Instead of describing an action in progress, te-iru describes the state that exists right after that instant action is over. Shinu, to die, happens in a moment,
So shinderu has to describe the result, is dead. And just like that, the puzzle is solved.
But hold on, there's one more little twist here. Think about it. What's the resulting state of hitting something once? There isn't really a lasting state. So for instant actions that you can repeat, like tataku, to hit or to tap, the te iru form means you're doing it over and over and over. So tataite iru doesn't mean is in a state of having been hit. It means is hitting repeatedly. It's another clever little logical jump. So we've solved the main puzzle, but this whole idea of aspect in Japanese goes so much deeper. The tater form is really just one tool in a much, much bigger toolkit for expressing all these incredibly subtle details about an action. Here are just a few of the other grammatical tools that add these incredible layers of meaning. They can show if something was done on purpose, or in preparation for something else, or even if a change is just starting to happen. Let's just look at two quick examples to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. This comparison is just fantastic. If you say mon ga shimatteiru, you're just stating a fact. The gate is closed. Maybe the wind blew it shut, who knows? But if you say mon ga shimete aru, you're saying so much more. You're saying the gate is closed because somebody closed it for a reason. The grammar itself actually tells you there was intention. Isn't that incredible? And here's one more tool, teoku. This form specifically means you're doing something in advance, in preparation for the future. So if you say, Taro wa mono shimete oita, it means Taro closed the gate, but it comes with this extra meaning that he did it for a reason, maybe to get ready for a storm or keep the dog inside later.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that aspect gives us this unbelievably rich picture of how an action unfolds, not just when it happens. And we saw that the meaning of teiru all comes down to that verb's secret identity. If it's a verb that takes time, teiru means in progress. If it's an instant verb, teiru means you're looking at the resultant state. It's a really elegant rule for a pretty complex idea. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. We've just uncovered this deep, beautiful logic that's hidden in plain sight in Japanese grammar. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secret rules and hidden dimensions are just waiting to be discovered in the grammar of the language you speak every single day?